members to the organizers for the invitation to speak is second product leaders. These are just my disclosures. That if you concentrate on the last bullet, it's just that I have no interest in the period. And I was asked to talk about the oversight function of the ethics, main function, which is human rights protection. So this is the outline of my talk. For developers, I'll talk about the history of nuclear work first. Sorry, talk about its oversight functions, human participant benefits, the growth of direct skill academic institutions. So, and previously about the human research ethics work, we all know that the University of the Philippines, Manila is one of eight constituent units of the UP system. But we pride ourselves on being the health science campus of the UP system. UP Manila Rep, by definition, is an institutional ethics review. So ang main function namin is to do the institutional review of all the researches that come from UP. And it was very important that UP and then become established because that was part of ethics review was an important international requirement. Uh, Before you could get any international grants and national collaboration, it is important that there was a very robust and coordinated mechanism that was in place that would ensure the protection of the research participants. So a very brief timeline or history of UTM. Way back in 1971, wala pang thread nung panahon dito. There was already a committee of research implementation and development, otherwise known as the CREED. So in 1979, was the establishment of the Committee of Research Implementation. Actually, I was searching the records, and this was the earliest account of any ethics committee in the whole Philippines, so 1970. If you will place that in context, in 1970, na-expose yung Pasquid si Cristal sa historical context. And after the exposure of the atrocities that were committed by physicians during the Pasquid si Cristal, nagkaroon ng Commission for the Protection of Human Participants in the United States. And they placed a lot of funding on the research and exchange because they knew that when tayo maging biktima, researches that were funded by abroad should be done in developing countries of the time to take advantage of the vulnerability of research participants. And that's exactly why the Committee on Research Implementation and Development was established because UP Catholic Medicine started receiving grants from the China Medical Board. And the China Medical Board already required that dapat may ethics committee approval before they proceed with doing research as CC data. Then fast forward to 2013, because at the time, 2013, the NIH Ethics Review, IRB, was established. At 2005, the NIH Ethics Review Committee was established. And at the same year, CREED was organized and is now organized into the region. which exists until now. Okay. Um, then, okay, so ang next one is in 2006, there was the creation of the Expanded Hospital Research Office or ERO. Yan ang hinahead naman niya, Dr. I don't know who the first director was, but the founder of the Pilipinas. Sila, Dr. Rodney pala. So, Dr. Rodney Papitas was the first director at that time. Then, this was followed in 2007, where the the NIH, the National Institute of Health Ethics Review Committee, was recognized by the FERCA, and that was the first ethics committee that received international recognition in the whole of the country. Okay. Then in 2012, I mean, sorry, 2010, there was the creation of the UP Manila Research Ethics Board. And the FREM accreditation was started in the country. So naman pa tayo spread sa mga board in Manila. In 2012, the human area was registered in the Office of Human Research Protection and received a federal-wide insurance that allowed us to do ethics review for any research that was done in the US. Because at the time, the US was having research and they were collaborating with sites in the Philippines. And we had to be accredited by federal level of the Office of Research Protection in the United States. The second program Silver Development Recognition was that, and this time it was planned already for the UP Manila. You will find out that UP Manila Rev uh, assumed all the responsibilities of Aero, Rigo, and the NIH. But I'll expound on that later. Okay, 2017, our third program accreditation, and the last was in 2022. And in 2026, we're scheduled already for our fifth program accreditation. So the function of the human lab is to oversee or uh, to provide universal oversight for research. And that is actually stop. That's actually the function of the office of the Vice Chancellor for Research. Ako, so, I know. So that's actually a function of the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Research. That's the entity that has become directly responsible for research policy implementation in the university. That means that under that office, all oversight function means that it supervises and coordinates the research-related units and offices and monitors and coordinates the research. So, of course, and this is done under the oversight of the PRF, or the Director for the Research Management and Transmission, which I believe is a position that's occupied right now by Professor Emma Falcon. So, as I said, UP Manila Red was created in 2010, September 2010, and it was supposed to integrate all the existing research ethics committees in UP Manila. Because at that time, there were three ethics committees in UP Manila. And at the time that we had three ethics committees in UP Manila, there were only four accredited ethics committees internationally. Three were from UP Manila, and the fourth was RITM. So apat lang ang ethics committee at the time, three out of four, nasa UP Manila. At the time, the chancellor was Ramon Arcadio, and he said that we should merge, no? And then unify ethics with procedures so that we could better implement the oversight functions. And this was approved by the Board of Regents in 2011. So yung mga picture that. Of course, as we implement the oversight policy, all of this is contained in our standard operating procedures. And our standard operating procedures are all available online in the spirit of transparency. So what's the scope? The scope is UPM Reg and includes all ethics review, all research conducted by regular faculty members, students, clinical faculty members, residents, fellows, of PGH, and other UP Manila researchers. There is limited outside research, but as long as the research is done by a UP Manila member, then UP Manila then has oversight this. And the ethical oversight aims to protect the human participants in research and contribute to the integrity of society. Aside from that, the UP Manila also provides certification for studies that have undergone ethics review prior to publication. Studies that are exempt from ethics review, such as meta-analysis and case reports, and studies that have undergone ethics review prior to being granted publication. So yan are being said. If your studies are not reviewed by the UP Manila, hindi yan makakredit sa faculty measure promotion or hindi kayo makakapasya ng publication mo. It has to be reviewed by the UP. And this is our organizational structure. You will appreciate from this organizational structure that there seems to be 5 review panels, but actually there are 7 because the 5th panel is divided into 3. So let me show you the scope. So panel 1 are the regular general university panels. The scope of panels 1 and 2 are the faculty, the reps, the NIH, the graduate students, and all clinical travelers. For panels 3 and 4, it's the PGH training. Sa totoo lang, ang pinakamalaking research output sa topic na ay sa PGH. So there are 2 panels devoted to PGH. And then for panels 5, panel 5 is divided into 5A, 5A, 5C. And the scope of panel 5 is the undergraduate students, yung mga PS. So the panel 5A is for college of pharmacy, allied medical professions, nursing, and dentistry. 5B is for public health, and 5C is for health sciences. So pati undergraduate panels ay sample ng UP Manila, and we pride ourselves at saying that we put as much rigor in our reviews for undergraduate research as we do for all other researches. And the ultimate goal, of course, is the protection of human participants. So you might ask, bakit kailangan protect human participants? Protection from what? So this is just a list of what we protect human participants from, like protected from loss of autonomy, I will expound on this later, the harms of the study intervention or outcome assessment, violations of the participants' rights and entitlements, and even bother. We protect them from bother. So what do we mean by loss of autonomy? An autonomous person is an individual, and I'm quoting from the Belmont Report, is an individual capable of deliberation about personal goals and acting under such deliberation. Yan ang sinabi ng Belmont Report. And to respect autonomy is to give weight to the autonomous person's considered opinions and choices while refraining from obstructing his or her actions. Ang sinasabi lang nito is that researchers should not force, deceive, or coerce participants into joining the research. It should be the choice of the participant. And how does that participant make the choice? You have to give the participant enough information to make an informed decision. So, hindi mo pwede i-read lang. Hindi mo pwede i-coffee. Hindi mo pwede bayaran para sa medicines. And to ensure also that the principal investigator should ensure that the consent is understood to the best of the ability of the parties. In fact, a very important instruction is not to sign the consent until you have understood. So, ang kailangan, i-explain mo na i-explain until satisfactory nasagot mo lahat ng tanong ng participant. Tapos alam niya ang society. So we also protect them from the harms of participation. So ano mga harms of participation? There are direct harms of research, like physical harms. If it's a clinical trial, they have events. Harms of the outcome assessment. Sometimes you plan wrong. Tutusukin mo ang harm yan. Pwede mag-example kung may problem pala siya. Pwede maging meaningful in the first place, borderline na decision. There are also mental harms. May kwento ako, there was a PhD project done at the College of Nursing, and the study design was for the nurse to interview cancer patients without realizing na pag in-interview niya ang cancer patient, pag naalala niya na ang hirap niya kung sa cancer, pwede mag-breakdown. And that was not even considered as one of the harms in this issue. So kung may mga nasa ethics, point out sa principal investigator that there is that chance na mag-stress siya as a result of the study. That would not have happened. Hindi siya masama. There are also social harms. The harm of possible stigmatization. So, may kwento ako, naalala ko isang study na gagawin sa Bukidnon where school children will be identified, who are identified with their head lice, will be randomized to either a herbal head lice preparation against the standard innovation, yung kwento. So sabi namin, okay naman, everyone's going to get treated. But it was pointed out by one of the social scientists in our panel, you can stigmatize them. Pag nalaman mo ibang bata, in-advise, yung kaklase nila, hindi na sila isasama sa pagsta. So yan ang sinabi namin sa PI, but we were told by the PI na mas marami nag-advise kaysa sa wala. So, kaligtad, na nasistigmatize yung walang advice. Hindi ka kasama, hindi ka katulad namin, nagpapag may advice ka. So, it's important and we make the researchers realize we have to ask the researchers to think of what the possible harms of participation so that they can include procedures to mitigate these harms. The next is a violation of rights. Researchers should put the participants' rights ahead of the study objectives. Our national ethical guidelines contains a section on the guidance for research participants. That's the only chapter in the national guidelines with a Tagalog translation called Gabay para sa mga kalahok ng isang pananaliks. So, ang speaker and is sana binabasa ng research participant yung chapter niya. I'd like to say that participants are entitled to the benefits of research, whether they're direct or indirect, and the ethics committee should uphold that entitlement. So, pag withdraw ang isang pasyente, nawawalan niya yung kanyang entitlement niya. If the patient is withdrawn. For example, a study which will include checkups at 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. Tapos withdraw yung pasyente. Pero sinayin ng pasyente sa consent. Na pumapayag ako sa 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months of check-up. Bigla mong nilagay sa kanya. So even if you withdraw the patient, that means you will just withdraw him from getting the intervention, but you will not remove the patient's entitlements. So we have to protect our patients first. And there's such a thing as the Fred Bill of Rights of research participants. I was thinking of clicking that link to show you the Bill of Rights, but it's 12 rights, and our UPM then requires now that all your research, all that printed link should be included in all concepts. Unfortunately, it's written in English. So, which is okay because kung hindi maintindihan ng pasyente, kailangan i-explain sa kanya. Ano ba? What else protect our participants against? Bother. Ano bang bother? Bother refers to the loss of time or inconvenience as a result of participation in research. So, at the very least, ang isang participant ay may bother. Pag dinapitan mo yung pasyente or participant at di-interview mo, there's bother. Pag lumapit kasi isang pasyente, binigyan mo ng questionnaire, sasabihin mo, pakisagot naman yan, there's bother. And sometimes just answering the questionnaire can take 1 or 2 hours. So don't forget that loss of time may lead to loss of revenue. Pag ang participant mo ay kapag at ang kinikita niya ay 100 pesos per hour, pag i-interview siya in 1 hour, wala na siyang income, no 100 pesos. So, bother may balance the risk-benefit assessment. Anong ibig sabihin niya? So, in a study where you ask just participants to fill up a questionnaire, there are no risks and there are no benefits. No, sorry, there are no benefits, but there is a risk. The risk is found. So there is an unfavorable risk-benefit ratio. Ang ibig sabihin niya, the researcher should be aware of the possible harms involved, and the research ethics committees can suggest increasing benefits para maging favorable yung risk-benefit ratio. So when you say increase the benefits, ano ba ang increase? Pwede mo bigyan ng token of appreciation, bigyan ng biggins, no? Para maging worth yung budget. Or you can give educational benefits, give a brochure about his illness. Kung diabetic siya, turuan mo siguro pag-prepare ng diabetic diet. Maraming pwede gawin para ma-offset yung risk-benefit. And a study which is supposed to be minimal risk, but still you're going to give risk-benefit ratio as a result. So lahat yan ay nakakontain sa ating national ethical guidelines. They contain guidelines for all types of research, plus general guidelines and the principles of health research learning. So what's in the screen are the three, the 20 and 2011, 2017, and the latest 2020. And in our national ethical guidelines, it recognizes that ethics safeguard the rights and the welfare and well-being of research participants. This is done through an ethics review that looks particularly at the following elements of research ethics, which I may not expound on in very much detail. Pag kayo nag-submit sa research ethics board, I think it also becomes a learning experience for you, lalo na kung matawa mo kayo for a clarificatory interview. And we do that because we also want the researchers to learn. So, studies should have social value. Hindi na pwede yung mga study na for trivial purposes or for knowledge sake. Social value means that the study has the prospect of improving the lives of the participants. Then it should impose the highest standards of informed consent. It should recognize that some patients are vulnerable. So what makes a patient vulnerable? Sometimes we call it cognitive vulnerability. Pag hindi nakakaintindi ng pasyente, paano mo siya i-include sa informed consent process? That's cognitive vulnerability. But a very important vulnerability is the juridic vulnerability when there is an asymmetric power relationship between the researcher and the research participant. So pag ang researcher-teacher vulnerable sa kanyang estudyante, imagine if I'm the teacher, I'm doing a study, and my patient population, my participants are all students. So whenever I recruit, sa kanyang estudyante, nakakalaman mo baka ibagsak pa niya ako, pero hindi ko yun. So, may vulnerability yan. And that juridic vulnerability can occur with employer and employee, teacher and student, and doctor and patient. So if you imagine where where the doctors here are all practicing in PGH, where the patient population is mostly child patients. Di ba double vulnerability na yan? Kasi sick na siya, medyo really vulnerability pa. Tapos child patient. Triple vulnerability. The fourth is privacy and confidentiality. And then the next is, as I said, it should always, all studies should have a favorable risk integration. Then, of course, all studies should be transparent. And when we say justice, there should be fair subject selection. Pag sinabi natin fair subject selection, ibig sabihin, we will not systematically prevent a particular person from joining research by virtue of his political inclinations, religious beliefs, or sexual orientation. Because all should be able to realize the benefits of research. So imagine kung lahat ng LGBT ay hindi mo isasama sa research. How do they benefit from the research if they're excluded? And stuff like that. Now, we have always emphasized that the role of the research ethics committee is to safeguard the rights and well-being of research participants. Pero lately, that role has been expanded. Lalo na ngayon yung Manila Reg, our role has been expanded to include, and this, I guess, the role in all academic institutions. So not only to safeguard the rights and well-being of research participants, but UP Manila Reg has a moral obligation to society and has a role in the professional development of researchers. And aside from that, we uphold research integrity and we protect the interests of other stakeholders, particularly the institution and the researcher. So when we say we have an obligation to society, we realize that society is the one who pays for the research. Pag nakakuha kayo ng funding from PCHRD, o DOST, o DPH, or even PayPal, it's the society, it's taxpayers' money actually, that pays for that research. So ultimately, the research should benefit society. And therefore, we should really not, kami as a research ethics board, should not approve studies that will not benefit society. Anong example pa yan? During COVID, there was a lot of talk about the effectiveness of ivermectin for the treatment of COVID. And because of a lot of political pressure, finally, ang PCHRD nag-fund sila ng isang COVID clinical trial. So, sinabit sa amin, but by the time that clinical trial was being submitted to the UP Manila Rep, may lumabas na systematic review that showed that ivermectin is, I read 3 minutes there, that ivermectin is not effective. So hindi namin in-approve this study. And we found out that this was going to be funded by PCHRD at about 10 million, for about 10 million. Again, by doing that, we saved the country 10 million pesos. Second is that next, what's the second? This is actually the third. We contribute to the professional development of researchers. And we do this by involving ourselves in education and training. So, any of you are welcome to attend an UPM meeting. Siyempre, magsasign lang kayo ng disclosure agreement at ng conflict of interest. But it becomes a learning experience. Actually, my students attend UP Manila meetings or are invited to observe UP Manila meetings. And we'd like to think that we promote a culture of ethical awareness, responsibility among researchers. I'm also the chair of SJREV, and SJREV has a capacity building objective in our research because we also invite other UH research ethics committee members to join the SJREV meetings. The next is that we foster trust in research outcomes. How? We ensure transparency and accountability. We make sure that the review is independent And independently instills confidence in the research community as a journalist. And we demonstrate commitment to ethical conduct and accountability. And we also uphold research integrity. We uphold the standards, high standards of integrity and honesty in the research of academic institutions, of course, in partnership with the Office of Research Integrity. But before the Office of Research Integrity was established, that was sort of our ambiguous goal. Kami ang taga-sundo. Yan lang, sorry. Pero sorry na lang kung nasundo namin. But we also evaluate the ethical implications of research proposals. We evaluate the validity of research methodologies, the reliability of the data collection, and potential impact of the research on individuals and communities. And we ensure that academic research meets rigorous ethical standards. Lastly, we protect the interests of the university as well as the hospital. We uphold intellectual property principles. We clarify custodianship of data. Uh, we we point out authorship issues. Anong example naman dito? There was a study that was submitted to us, which is a collaborative study with an international hospital on retinoblastoma. So they wanted to get our local researchers to submit a registry retinoblastoma. Ang dami retinoblastoma sa Pilipinas and found out that more than 60% of the retinoblastoma people in the registry was from the Philippines. Ano yung authorship na dito? Did you clarify that? But you should be one of the main authors if you're going to be contributing that. So, yeah. So we have to contact out the research. Of course, proper attribution and acknowledgement, future studies and protection from unscrupulous recruitment activities. So we protect the interests of the investigator. So that's it. In summary, I provided the history of the Human Research Ethics Board, provided our oversight function. Our main function is to do an ethics review that will ensure human participant protection. But as a result of excellent reviews, we have expanded our role to protect the academic institution and the researcher as well. So we safeguard the rights and well-being of research participants. We also have an obligation to society. We contribute to the professional development of researchers, uphold research integrity, protect the interests of the institution and the researcher. And I'd like to boast that we have received the Best Ethics Committee Award in 2019, and that award is never given again. So I think this is the governing and ethics committee in the FERCAP. That's the Forum for Ethics Review Committees in the Asia Pacific. So thank you very much for listening. We would like to open the floor for Q&A. Questions. Yes, questions. Especially by the Hello, good afternoon. Hello po, hello. Good afternoon, Dr. Marihan. Gusto ko lang po, how to resolve po kaya like yung issue when it comes to ICF? Kasi it's multi-site, registered study, and then yung ICF po kasi is basically theory. And happen na merong ICF na ipadala sa isang site, and then sign na rin ng sub-IN patient yung wrong ICF. That signing a wrong ICF is a protocol violation. So you need to report that to the ethics committee. But when you report that, you should provide us with a corrective action and a preventive action. But I'd like to say that to have a common consent for all the sites is wrong already. Because a consent is site specific. iba ang ethical issues ng iba-ibang side. For example, you do a multi-center study and then one side is Mahatma and the other side is PGH. Iba ang tinitignan ng ethics committee sa PGH as charity yung pasyente. So very vulnerable sila. But that's not a problem with Makati. They're considered vulnerable by virtue of their economic, socio-economic status. So your corrective action should be each side should create their own consent and then that consent approved by your side ethics committee. So even for multi-site studies, there should be a site-specific ethics committee. Okay, thank you. I'm really revolution.
Thank you.
There's no like fee or remuneration for participant kasi it depends. Usually, you will give an amount that is not large enough to be construed as undue influence, but not small enough that you will violate your patient's needs. So it's very clear. You have to submit your proposal to the UP Manila Research Ethics Board and justify it. So usually, ang kino-cover uh, expense for any visit will be transportation and lunch siguro, or sometimes even 2 meals lunch for more than one person kasi especially if you're including somebody who's elderly needs a companion, then you have to cover for the meal. But whatever it is that you place in your proposal, the justification in that way have to be approved by the MSC. I think I went about remuneration. No? That was the first time that we in the University told the researcher paano may ibigay niya sa patient. It was an OP study. Kasi, kasi in essence, yung mga pasyente for hysterectomy, hinihingi ng study yung uterus. Kasi it was necessary for cervical cancer, tapos yung the cervix. So bago mag-hysterectomy yung pasyente, i-susunod. Ito therapy nila pero hindi kaya. Tapos hihingi nila yung uterus para histologic section. Which is a good study, pero they will pay 10,000 pesos per, per specimen. Sabi namin, yung mga ayaw magpa-hysterectomy, papayag na lang kami sa para lang makakuha ng specimen. Actually, ito yung hindi na pag-child patients. That's a last thing. Natuwa na yung research. Sige, tinatapos yung
They grab the new page.
Opo, hindi naman.
Dadaan pa siya ng iba nila.
Opo. The XRF will review the general protocol, the protocol that applies to all the sites. But what does not apply to the site? Recruitment, because each site is a different recruitment procedure. Who will administer the consent? Each site, iba-iba. External consent. Yung remuneration, ibang site, iba-iba yung binibigay sa PGH, child rates. Kasi kung siya mataas, baka yun ang influence. So, privacy and confidentiality, the data protection plan is very site-specific. So, yun lang ang titignan ng site pag-approve ng SGA. Ngayon, kung ang site hindi nag-agree sa SGA review, then they can opt out. They don't need to join the study.
First, yesterday, there was mention of that it was the UPX rep to somehow regulate the PI. as to the number of projects or programs. So
No.
because there was a concern yesterday as to some principal investigators having too many projects that
That's
they
true.
are unable to do their jobs correctly. Okay, so, hindi pala.
No, it's not that we are regulating. It's that sometimes we come across researchers na ang daming protocol violations or protocol deviations or ang daming may mga complaints, you know. And then when we find out that masyadong marami prove, we cannot necessarily help it. We can only recommend. So we sometimes recommend dapat bawasan yung mga studies ko. There was another instance where we really put our foot down during the time of pandemic because there were researchers who were running several vaccine trials competing pa ibang tao. But they were running simultaneously on. So in essence, ang naman nangyayari, they were competing with themselves. So they will parang you envision if you're recruiting for this that tatanong saan mo gusto din study A, B, or C. Yung study A, 2005. Yung bigay yung study A, so we were saying, hindi pwede ganyan. If you're going to run several clinical trials with the same age, with the same inclusion and exclusion criteria, then they should be in different stages of recruitment. Dapat siguro, implementation ng isa, recruitment, listing ang yung dito, tapos na yung isa. So that's the only instance where we gave recommendations that we have no police powers. We cannot say
Second question, you are, as part of the research team, you are aware of some questionable practices like, doctor recruitment, recruitment, and then, supply.
that's a very timely question. It's happening right now. We have become aware because of a report that patients from study site A, which was under our site, had patients who were being recruited for another site. And that's double enrolled. And because they told us about it and formally make an incident report about it, we're forced to investigate. So we have to coordinate with other ethics committees and eventually we have to report it to them.
Kaya alam yung sa inyo, parang nahuli eh. Double if hindi ganun yung case, like, sometimes differently stopped and you get to know practices of other
Kasi
things.
there's so daming hearsay, kailangan may formal. Before, kung may formal complaint, of course, they have that.
Really possible or permissible. I don't know, like I mean, you guys are moving to a situation where we have such things as national IDs, some kind of unique identifier for an individual. Would it be acceptable if somehow the different investigators agreed on using that identifier to
Maybe just two questions. There's an update GCP for the ninth floor. And that's the topic.
oh, okay.
So, and I feel that if there's one particular party that we have the right to is of all clinical trial participants, it should be the FDA. Kasi they have the mandate, parang in fulfilling their duty as a regulatory, they have the right to look at patient information that we don't have now. But But the FDA doesn't agree with us.
Okay.
That's why.
Too much work.
Yes, adding to their word, of course, it's expensive for the Philippines. So our other approach would be this is, pero they have to identify duplicate enrollees based on uh, like same birthday, same municipality, same things like that. Based on pseudonyms or not, without disclosing the names.
Thank you.